wanted to touch on this. So there've been a lot of screaming lately about male-only spaces and video games and shit like that. I just wanted to read what Alexander wrote on the stream and maybe give a little discussion about it. So, given how many relationships form online and some through games, they do. I actually have a friend who met his wife that he is still married to after 20 years and has a child with. Met her on WoW while we were in college. Here's to you, buddy. I have wondered if the video games equal male spaces discourse of incels is driving in part by wanting an environment free of romance and relationships. I think he might be right. Because it is one of those things, it's like, he keeps going on. I mean, they have more or less said that men start simping and acting different when women are around. This 100% is true. You don't have to say simping because that's not exactly right. I described this in a tweet not too long ago about how I had an experience with a bunch of enlisted people and an officer. The officer was female. And basically it was a bunch of 20-year-old, 18 to 24-year-olds all around one another. And basically you had all the meathead dudes doing handstands saying who can walk handstand the longest. And essentially you had the group of women, which included one officer, surrounded by like 3 enlisted girls, all giggling in the corner, gooning over the dudes doing handstands because, they're all 18 and fucking jacked. And this is like this like borders on fraternization because of what's going on, right? Because the female officer shouldn't be in the group of females. None of them should be doing any of what they're doing, number one, especially not in fucking uniform. But, people acting retarded in uniform is just normal day-to-day shit. And the point is that it's not about the decorum of the situation. It was a very innocent thing. It wasn't anything crazy. Not, whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is that men do change their behavior when they're around women that they find even somewhat attractive. And this is not a conscious thing. It is completely unconscious. Like any dude knows, you can get a hard on at any time, any moment of any part of the day, especially when you're a young dude. And it just happens for no reason, right? It's because you have no control over that part of your body. The same way that when men start acting different when women are around is because you have an unconscious, subconscious thing going on in your body that is making you want to appear more attractive to the opposite sex to increase your chances of reproduction. Like this is something that is ingrained in our psyche from the fact that we're animals, and animals are driven to procreate. We are no different. Like again, I wouldn't use the word simping, but he is quoting, and it's a fair enough assessment that I would agree with it in some forms. That male behavior does change when women are around, especially women that they find attractive, even if they don't understand that they're finding them attractive, right? And especially when they're younger people, because they don't, especially like if you're not raised to have proper decorum around these situations, or if you are not given the proper discipline when stuff like this happens, or it's the simple fact that they just don't understand what is going on. And not only that, they're young, dumb, and full of, well, there you go. And so they have to, and so they just do it. There's no rhyme or reason. Like I remember doing this. It was it's peacocking is the thing. It's where if you're a dude, when you see a pretty woman, you'll stand up straighter, maybe like put your shoulders back, puff out your chest, kind of deal. You're peacocking. You're showing off that I am a masculine man. Look at how strong I am, and you don't even realize you're fucking doing it. Like my wife says I do it when she walks in and is wearing something nice. I'll immediately like stand up straight, and it's just like, yeah, it happens. And so it's just normal behavior. And so he goes on to explain which in normie parlance means in normie parlance probably just means men give attention to women and flirt. Yes, this is the key. And I've seen this not in just this situation, but in other situations, right? Like my friend group accused me of this long ago when I was in the Navy, when my girlfriend came to visit us, that I started acting different around her. As in, I was more, how should I put this? I was more aggressive toward them, and standoffish, yeah. And it was because I was trying to assert dominance over the group to show the female that I had attraction to that I was the dominant one and worthy of her attention. Like, I'm not even lying. This happened to me, and I didn't even realize it was happening. And once they told me, I literally brought my girlfriend up and was like, "Are they right?" And she's like, "Yeah, they're totally right." And I was like, "Fuck, yeah." It was bad, and they just said, "Dude, you knock it the fuck off." And it was because it was happening in a non-innocent way, right? I was actually being a dick, and I should not have been. And so I would say it corrected the behavior, but it mostly just tamped it down. So can't go. So video games are a sort of safe space where their resentment for others in relationships is free from being triggered. Kind of like how Elliot Rodger would seethe when he saw a couple out in the park together. Yeah. I'm often hard on games in general. I think young men should do something better with their time. Fair enough. But I'm definitely on team cut cute nerds who flirt in the game versus team resentful incels who need a safe space free from normal human interaction. Okay, that's fine. So he picked a side. That's fine. What I will say is that one of the reasons why a lot of games don't feel like men are their target audience is because they're not. They want to target more people. But the problem that they run into is that the vast majority of games that are like AAA, that have like action combat and all this stuff, you like 90 to 95% of the demographic that you're appealing to are men. So when you add stuff like relationships, like let's get off the incel thing and let's just talk about like male spaces. The vast majority of men that I have interacted with and spent time with and done, social interaction and all this other stuff, the stuff that we bond over is not watching relationships develop, on a TV show or in a book or any of that stuff. Like, all those things are great. I do enjoy a good romance. Frickin' my favorite Arthur, Brandon Sanderson, has tons of them in all of his books, and they're great. And they're not just the superficial, seen but not heard female off in the background that's like some kind of like, description of the like fucking, Madonna or some dumb shit like that, where, they're so divine they can't even be in the story because, it's just about a motivation for the male characters. No. Fully developed characters and stuff. But the vast majority of stuff that we bonded over were stuff that involved violence, specifically. Sports, literal violence, like sparring in the parking lot. I can't tell you how many of my friends and I fought in a parking lot before, but just because we got a little angry at one another. And so we sparred and beat the fuck out of one another. And it's, just good fun. It also helps when you're drunk. Over a hockey game, man. Over a hockey game. Anyway, but like these are the kind of things. We're playing stupid games that are like beer pong, that don't even have to involve alcohol. Just stupid things like that all the time. Almost never have I bonded with another man or a group of men in like a social situation the way women bond with women, right? And so your entire demographic here are dudes who want to blow shit up and feel really fucking cool. So when they talk about the male power fantasy, it's like, yeah, the male power fantasy is I want to be the person doing the things that saves the world because saving the world is good. And it makes you feel awesome and heroic. And that's cool. Okay. So when you start adding shit like relationships into games and they're an integral part, you're going to turn a lot of people off simply because they're not looking for that. So as long as it's not like too big of a deal, like for instance, in Mass Effect, for instance, you don't have to do any of the relationship stuff. Like, obviously, if you're not into RPGs where you talk a lot, it's not your game, right? But if you do like the RPGs where you talk a lot, but you're not into all that romance shit, you're just like, nah, fuck all that. I don't want nothing to do with that. You could just skip it. Like, all of them make passes at you at some point or another. Or a few of them do anyway. And you could just bypass it. No big deal. Or you can seek to pursue that relationship, and I usually do, just because it's fun, right? It's all, a romance is always part of any good story because, being motivated by love is an extreme. Wow, that filled me with a lot of emotion. Excuse me. Being motivated by love to be a hero it feels like a very masculine thing just in general. I don't know why, because it's like. Let me describe it to you like this. The way my wife and I's relationship works is that I am the man and she is the woman. I am the husband and she is the wife. And we take our roles seriously. This is why I work out. This is why I practice with my firearm. This is why I practice punching and fighting and doing all these things, is because if a situation calls for it, can my wife defend herself without me? Sure. Does she have weapons that she is able to use in a fight that she could defend herself? Sure. But when we're out with me, her, and the kids, her first priority is going to be kid safety. My first priority is to kill whatever is trying to hurt my family. Right? That is the delineation of the job here. Husband, wife. Wife ensures child safety. Husband kills thing that is trying to endanger safety. Or let me rephrase, destroys thing that is endangering family. That is the role in our relationship. And the thing about it is that we're both fully aware, and we have articulated this, and I have specifically articulated this to her, is that if it was necessary, I would die for my family to protect them. Like there's no question. I love them that much. I wouldn't just die for them. I would do much, much more horrible things. So this is why I say that this is why I often use the Jordan Peterson quote of "be a monster," is because I actually know what that fucking means. Because as a young man, I had to learn how to control my anger. I mean, I still have problems with it, but control it in a way that I wouldn't hurt other people. Because I absolutely 100% will hurt other people if I hadn't. And so I had to learn to channel. I had to find a way to channel my violence into more constructive things. And I discovered very early on in my life the darkness that resides within my heart. And I really didn't have and to be fair, I didn't know how to truly articulate it the way I do now until I heard Jordan Peterson say it. So kudos for him on that. Me and my cousins, when we were angry, we'd go hard work, like digging a hole or chopping wood to get out of our system. Yeah. Punch a bag or stuff like that, wrestle, stuff like that. Yeah, me and my cousins always wrestled when we got angry at one another. And our, the males that were around basically just let it go on until it got out of hand, or, so one of us won, and then it was like, all right, break it up. That's enough. Like, it's not no, it's that's enough. I love that. But anyway, I learned early on the darkness that resided within my heart because I was bigger than most other children, and so I could it happened too, where somebody made me really mad and I haul off and punch them and it destroys them, like sends them to the hospital from one punch. And it's like, well, maybe you shouldn't hit people with things. And it's like, I didn't get in any trouble, but the dude was hitting me with a weapon. And so I just clocked him across the face. And you got to remember, I'm a small child at this point. Like, I'm like, what was I in third grade when it really broke out? And it was, and the funny thing is nobody really thought much about it then, because I was just a big kid and I was getting things. But then an older kid who was bigger than me one day just like hauled off and kicked me in the nuts, literally on the school stairs. And so later that day, when we were at lunch, his lunchtime was the same as ours because even though we had grade difference, it was it was a big cafeteria. I got a tray and I hauled off and smacked him over the head with it. He did not get in trouble, by the way, for kicking me in the nuts. I just want to point that out. It was at the beginning of school. I had two teachers watching us, and he just kicks me in the nuts. You got to remember, this guy was like in a complete head taller than me too. Yeah, so I beat him in the face with a cafeteria tray, and that's when it got bad, and that's when I had to learn to control it, and I did. And one of the ways I did that was through martial arts. And so there does live a monster in all of us, and you need to know that it's there. Otherwise, when you are put in a situation which is extreme, that monster might come out and you might not know how to control it. There have been several times when I've wanted to do really bad things to people, and I haven't. And the reason is because I know it's there, and I won't let it out. There are only a handful of situations that the monster comes out, and People talking shit to me ain't it. It ain't it. I learned a long time ago that's not where it goes. I don't want to go to jail. I like my freedom. I like playing video games. And that's where I want to keep it. And I don't want to say, let me say this. I don't want to say that the only reason I don't do bad things to people is because of jail, but it is a good, sometimes the main reason I don't do bad things to the people I want to do bad things to is because of the punishment involved. That if I wouldn't get punished for certain things, that I may have done them. It took me a long time to really admit that to myself, but it's true. It's absolutely true. And this is how I feel like I've grown, is that I recognize these parts. And would I do those same things today if I wouldn't get punished? Probably not. Simply due to and the funny thing is it's not because I'm a good person. It's because it might backfire on me and hurt my family. Not just for me going to jail, but revenge, vengeance, any of that number of shit, right? I can't be awake 24/7, to protect my family. There is some point where I have to go to sleep. So, but I think a lot of dudes are kind of pissed that so many games are overly appealing to girl gamers when the vast majority of these games make their money from dudes like me, right? Or dudes like I used to be, 18, 20, 15-year-old boy who wants to pretend like he's a murder god and kill demons all day, right? Diablo 2, that was me. Dead bodies make me happy, man. that fucking song. Anyway, I had it on repeat playing Diablo 2. It was something else. So I think it's not just incels. It's just in general, because I feel this as well. And obviously I'm not an incel. I have a fucking wife and children, and I get laid on the regular. Like, what are we talking about? And I don't care if women come into spaces. Like, my wife games with me whenever she wants. And she never tried to make me feel like she was like a true gamer or any of that shit. She admits she's a fucking dirty casual. And because she wears it like armor, I can't use it against her. Every time I call her a dirty casual, she's like, well, duh. And it's just like, it takes all the bite out of it. And it's like, God, I love that woman. Because she can banter. Anyway, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, I can't remember who said it. I think it was Asmongold said that it's great that you can pet cats, right? It's great that you can have animals and all these other things. But if that's your focus, if your focus is on politics, or your focus is on fucking petting the cats or making a cat farm, then why are you focusing on things that aren't important to the people who buy your games? These things are not important. If they're there, that's fine, because they appeal to some people. But the vast majority of people who buy games for those reasons, who buy games like Assassin's Creed, don't give a fuck about petting cats or having a cat farm. They want to kill people and be a fucking cool samurai while they fucking do it, right? We could spar, but not in anger. My uncle would not have it because he wanted to teach us to harness bad energy for good things, and I've come to appreciate that philosophy. He's a doctor in the military. Fair enough, man. Fair enough. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with the fact that you can't fight in anger, because think about it like this. If you never fight when you're angry, what happens when you get angry and then you have to fight? Well, you're not properly trained, right? You're trained to fight when you're cool and not when you're angry. So even if you have trained your anger and you've learned how to control it, if you've never been in a fight while you've been angry, then you don't know that situation, and you don't know how you'll do in that situation. Don't get me wrong. I'm not shitting on it. What I'm saying is that it's a differentiation in philosophy, and my pushback on that would be like, well, this is what I think about why that is not as optimal as the other way around. Now, there is a lot to be said about not allowing people to beat the fuck out of each other when they're angry, of course. But it's one of these things, like I said, when we would get mad at each other, we would wrestle and stuff. But if it ever got out of hand, of course the adults would break it up. That was the whole point, was for us to learn how to deal with our emotions with other dudes without hurting each other. Because dudes wrestling in a yard and they don't actually hurt each other, I don't fucking see a problem with this, right? It's like punching a punching bag, right? Except your punching bag is a living person, and you're having like this argument, but you're doing it physically, but you're not actually hurting one another, right? It's all, like I said, it's almost like they're having an argument, but instead of words, it's physical force, but physical force in a way that is not meant to actually hurt the other person. And I think there is a quality to that that you cannot get otherwise, right? Now, it obviously I could be wrong. That could absolutely be the right way. But for me, in my experience, this specifically because my cousins were all smaller than me, including the one that was older than me. He was like a year older than me, and I've always been bigger than him until we became adults, and now we're about the same size. I think I'm still like an inch or two taller than him, but he has to walk around like this. So, but like in my experience, it allowed us to get our anger out with one another, and we bonded over it. Because like I said, it almost never got out of hand, and if it ever did, then they would break it up. And the reason it almost never did is because after like 30 seconds to a minute of us, we'd be tired as fuck and just like, and then, my granddad would come over and be like, "Are you done? If you're not done, you can keep going." Yeah, that was my granddaddy. You got to remember that this is a guy who told me stories about how he had knife fights when he was like that age, like 9 or 10. Hammer fights, literally dudes hitting each other with hammers. Oh my God. Like, he told me this story about this, one of the ways that they would fight with knives is they would take a belt, they would clasp hands, and other boys would tie a belt around your hand so you couldn't let go, so you couldn't get away. And then after at the count of 5, you'd start knife fighting. And I was just blown the fuck away when I heard that shit. Like, I was like, holy shit. And so, yeah. Sorry, I like just thinking about it, I'm like flabbergasted. It's like, you got to remember, one of the reasons why it appears that people are getting dumber is because we're allowing more people to survive that wouldn't have in the past, right? Because boys knife fighting with one another and potentially killing one another is not something that would be allowed today. I mean, I seriously doubt they allowed it much back then, but there was a lot less oversight of children than we have today. A lot less ways to like keep track of them and stuff like that. And yeah, and a lot of people had a lot more children, so you got to cull the herd, right? All right. Yeah, so I will say this. I absolutely do not side with resentful incels who are screaming about safe space from normal human interaction. True. But I don't think these are the only two sides. Right? Because it's not just cute nerds who flirt in the game. It's when females come into a male space, and not only do males change their behavior, but so do the females, right? This is why I was talking about the example of the military in the military, about the group of young dudes who are doing handstands to impress the ladies, and the ladies over here include like one officer, and they're all standing there giggling like like they're in fucking high school. Both parties change their behavior based on perceived attraction. It's just how we interact with one another because we're animals, right? The fair point, we're dealing with a lot of men that get angry and don't know how to channel their anger without being destructive. Yes, and hence one of the reasons why it's like it's like one of the things I'm teaching my little girl. It's like you have to be able to be physical and be aggressive, even if you aren't, even if you're scared, even if you're not feeling it, all this other stuff. Like today, I had her whack a tree with a stick. It was so proud as a dad. I'm not even gonna lie, because she's scared of bugs and just we don't need to go into the details, but I was just very proud, because she's very, very demure and tame and stuff like that, unless she's in her own little world. But not only do males change their behavior, but so do females. And it's not even just that. It's that there is this, there is also a portion of the females who do come into male spaces who do not come in to integrate into male spaces. They come in to change the male spaces to be more female spaces, be more female friendly. And it's like, if it's a space that is open to anyone, which it pretty much is, and you want to come in and change it, then I'm just going to say no. And honestly, that's what it should have been from the beginning. But the problem is that you have all the institutionalists who basically, this is how commies gain power in our day, is they brown nose the institution until they get to the top of the tree in the institution, and then they control it with their tyrannical communist bullshit, right? That's essentially how they march through the institutions. And one of the reasons why all the shit appears like in colleges and all the stuff at the top, but like the vast majority of people are just like, this is fucking retarded. What are we doing? That's why. And so you have the game journalists, and you have a lot of the people who run these game companies. They're all fucking like super progressive, woke and shit. And it's like, that's fine if they were just regular normal people who had these beliefs, but they're not regular normal people. They're subverted communists, right? A lot of them, where they believe they have to inject their specific political agenda into every goddamn thing, no matter what it is, and give no room for thoughtful retrospection. And thoughtful retrospection, if you don't know what that means, is where a game will present you with a problem and allow you to solve it. They'll present you with a moral conundrum. Like in Dragon Age, there's racism everywhere. Humans are racist against Kunari, against dwarves, and most especially against the knife ears. That would be elves. And elves are racist against humans for obvious fucking reasons, because, they enslave them. Of course, you could say that one of the main reasons why the elves got enslaved is because they enslaved everybody else first. But we don't need to get into that. And then you have dwarves who are essentially racist against everybody else. Like, there's racism all throughout the game, and you can choose to be not racist. But the world is racist, and you get to choose if you think that's good or bad, or how you want your character to interact with all these racist fucking people in the world. And so you could also be a racist if you want to in the game. But the game gives you the choice. It offers a thoughtful retrospection, because almost all of the people who are like super ultra mega fucking racist in the game, you can have conversations with them about their fucking racism. And potentially maybe even change their minds, or out them as the true hateful just bigots that they are. But at no time does the game preach to you about racism until you get to Dragon Age 4. Yay. We're inclusive. God. Oh, it kills me, man. Fucking kills me. So, yeah, I mean, Alexander's not wrong over the incel part. I would just say that the entirety of the male space people that are trying to be like, look, like this, like we don't want to send them away and not have like relationships and games. It's just that there is this problem, and this like white knighting that just seems to happen, where a woman comes into a space and she's not immediately showered with affection and welcomed, and that's a problem, and therefore we need to change the entire space to accommodate this individual or this small group of individuals. And while that's an extreme exaggeration as to what's going on, that's a lot of how it's perceived, right? And a lot of times that is how it works, where, it's like the D&D meme where a player comes in and was like, oh, I don't like this part. Hey, I want to play D&D. That's the first panel. The next part is, hey, I don't like this part. Can we not do this? And then it's basically the next one is, no, this is the game, and if you don't like it, then whatever. And they're like, no, I want to change it. And it's like, okay, fine, we'll change it. And then it's like, and then you keep changing it until you realize it's like you don't like the game anymore. And so and then when you're like, but I don't like the game anymore because you've changed it. And then they say, well, you can leave. This is not your space. This space wasn't made for you. And it's like, but male gamers built this space, right? We did. We absolutely did with our money. The vast majority of the money that I got before I started like actually working as an adult, a good portion was spent on video games. And I know a lot of dudes that were like that, because back in the day when this was a 99% male only space, men gave their money for product because it was good. And then these companies became the big amazing companies they are, like Blizzard, for instance, because of people like me. Millions of people like me bought their fucking games because they were awesome, right? Some of them were female who bought those games. Some of them were female who got into those games. But the vast majority of women were not playing video games when I was playing video games. The vast majority of women today, when I play video games, are not playing video games. To be fair, the vast majority of men are not playing them either. But what I mean, but the point that I'm trying to make is that when you consider like modern, like PC style gaming, when you're talking about games that are like Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty, things like this, these are essentially male games, right? Do females participate? Do females like them? Yes. But pointing out the extreme minority does not disprove the fucking rule, and it never has. And I'm not saying Alexander's doing that. He's not. I've went off on like 5 fucking different tangents at this point. But essentially, I do agree with a good portion of this as to how this is why so many of the incels are screaming about it. True, 100%. It borders on misogyny. Sure. A lot of it. But there's also another team here, right? Versus team who wants games to go back to the escapism and fun that they used to be, because that's when games were awesome, instead of just slop. Because what a lot of the modern political bullshit assholes don't understand is that you could make the reason they call games woke is not because they have black people, it's not because they have fucking gay people or any of that other shit. Mass Effect, you could be gay in that. And guess what? Nobody really gave a fuck. I thought it was weird how much they pushed it in the third one, like openly, but it was just like, whatever. He was just a normal dude who's just part of the team. Like, what the fuck ever. The point is that I keep saying that, don't I? It's just like so what these idiots don't realize is that the reason that people push back against the woke in the games is because it's not about the politics in and of themselves. It's about the fact that they're using their politics in a way that is disingenuous to the medium. As in, you're not giving the player agency, you're telling the player what you want them to think. And if you tell the player what you want them to think, a lot of them are just going to give you 2 middle fingers, even if you have a good message. Because in the message in Mass Effect is diversity is good. That taking disparate people from disparate places to work together for a common goal is how you win. Diversity is our strength. That's one of the main things in fucking Mass Effect. Like, it's literally in how you build your goddamn teams. They're full of different people from different places. All the humans are like different fucking colors. You've got fucking lizards and motherfucking whatever the fuck the Krogan are. You know what I'm saying? And the Taurians are some kind of like a fucking weird carapace looking motherfuckers. Like, we had all of this before woke. We had diversity. We had women. We had all the shit that the diversity people think we didn't. But we did. We had all of it. It was all there. It all existed and nobody gave a fuck. Blade is a primary example. Now, I know that's not a video game. It's a movie. But that movie is like, nobody is Blade but Wesley Snipes. That motherfucker is absolutely amazing. It's like Wesley Snipes as Blade is like a fucking amazing guitar solo. That's what he is. It's like, it brings tears to my eyes at how fucking good it is. They changed races to species in D&D, got rid of interracials like half-elves. Curious how the slaver argued that the black man is a different species to white. I mean, I don't recall slavers doing that. It's more of a modern day argument, but sure. But I mean, the problem is that we are all the same species because we can breed with one another, and our children are not infertile. If I have a child with a black person, my child will be fertile. So we are the same species. Differentiation in species is the inability to procreate with another and produce viable, fertile offspring. So this is why horses and donkeys are actually different species, is because yes, they can reproduce with one another because they're close enough, but the culmination of that reproductive process, what we call a jackass, is an infertile being. It cannot reproduce with either of the two or other jackasses, should it be female. Should one jackass be male and one jackass be female, they're essentially infertile. They can't reproduce. And so, yeah, it's like getting rid of species and interracial and Interracials. I don't. You mean half breeds? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, half breeds. I think that's dumb. I really like half breeds because they are literally the manifestation of diversity being your strength, because you have like the strengths of both species amalgamized into one. Like you have a half orc, right? Half orc is not nearly as ugly as a regular orc, but is almost just as strong, right? But is as smart as a human. Can be as smart as a human. Whereas most orcs are relatively dumb compared to humans, with a few geniuses that are about average human intelligence, right? Whereas a half orc is more likely to be of average human intelligence than a normal orc. So there's all kinds of things you can do with these, and they just threw it out the window because they wanted to go woke, right? It's because they want to get rid of race and all this other stuff because of the political connotations and all this other stupid shit. When if they really wanted to just change it, all they had to do is, instead of labeling it race, just label it species. That's literally all they had to do. And instead of getting rid of the interracials, because half-breeds are still half-species, right? Like, half-breeds have been a thing in lore since forever. Elrond is a half-elf, right? That's the original Tolkien lore, man. You know what I mean? So yeah, changing it to species. I mean, I don't necessarily mind that, because race doesn't mean what it's supposed to, because they are technically different species. But what that does mean is that if you do make them different species, then you obviously have to get rid of interracials. But that's not true, because you have magic, right? So it's just like in Star Trek. Are Vulcans and humans different species? Yes. Can they breed? No. But with medical science, yes, they can. So it's dumb to get rid of interracials when you live in a land of magic, when if you have a human and an orc that really love one another, they should be able to have children. And there's no way you can't tell me that Mystera or any of the other gods wouldn't like allow some type of magic to allow this to happen, right? Or that it would just be, or because the world is natural in and of itself, that you would be able to breed with other species, even though technically the species delineation means that you can't. Or they could do what they did with horses. They could manifest it in a way that like horses and donkeys do, where a half orc is infertile or a half elf is infertile, right? Where you're close enough to one another because of how the world was created in magic and all this shit. But if you do have a half breed, they can't breed themselves. They can't breed with humans. They can't breed with their other species or whatever species they happen to be part of, right? So it shows you just how. Because do you believe that this was done for any other reason than political, right? It's hard for me to believe that it was when they explicitly do it for those reasons, right? And it does bother me, because it's like, you don't need to do this, because it's a different world. This is like, as funny as dumb as it sounds, the reason that motherfuckers laugh when people like, you can imagine dragons but you can't imagine black people in your fantasy, and it's like, you're a moron. If you say that, you are not a fan of fantasy. You are not a fan of any of this shit. Because if you were, you would understand that that's not what the argument is. The argument is it's not congruent with the world. So if you want to have black people in this fantasy world, they need to exist somehow. If you just put random black people in a world that's covered in fucking ice, it doesn't matter that it fucking has dragons or not. Humans are human. Fuck. And so if you want black people there, you have to make a reason to why they exist. The reason they exist on our planet is because if the dysphoria from Africa is true, we all originated from Africa, and Africa's conditions create darker skin. When you move up into the northern parts of the world where there's less sunlight, which means you get less vitamin D from the sun, your skin has to change color. Otherwise, you won't be able to get enough vitamin D and you'll fucking die. That's why white people exist. So if you have an ice ball fucking planet, it doesn't make much sense for there to be black people unless literally everybody just arrived there, like in the last 10 generations, right? So if you want to have a race of black individuals on an ice ball planet, it doesn't matter if they're dragons or not. The dragons exist within the lore because you can fucking make up lore to make them exist, just like you can make up black people, right? You just have to do it right. It's like the elf. It's like the Lotor argument. Excuse me, not Lotor. It's like the Rings of Power argument about the black elf. Oh, you can imagine dragons and you can imagine all this other shit, but you can't imagine a black person. And it's like, bro, there are no black elves. So if you put a black elf in the lore, you have to justify it in some way. You have to make up more lore to why is this dude black when every other elf is white? And they're technically not white because white is a human thing. They're pale. They just, so they look like white people. They just have giant fucking ears. But they're not white because the same reasons that humans are white. They're white because that's the way they were created. Dragons don't equate to the existence of Chicago. Yeah, exactly. Sorry about that. I should have blooped that. Wolf, greetings and salutations, my friend. How you doing, buddy? So it's people not understanding how these fantasy worlds work. The vast majority of people who play fantasy or stuff like that are casual fantasy enjoyers, right? They don't really give a fuck about the deep lore or any of this other stuff. But the main fans who keep these things going, the people who dedicate their lives to interacting with your product, like I did with Star Trek so long ago, will literally just stop if you do shit like this. That's what you got to remember. So if you want to make money, if you don't want to make money and you just want to be put out political bullshit, that's fine. But you're going to tank these amazing companies if you do that. And you'll probably get sued because many of them are publicly traded. And if you don't do things that are in the best interest of the company and you do things that are in the best interest of your politics, well, they'll sue your ass into the ground and take all your shit. So the people who keep the franchises alive are the true fans who care about the lore. And if you shit all over them enough, eventually they'll just stop. I've basically, like, I don't watch anything Star Trek anymore except the old shit. Like even with the new there was the one show Lower Decks. I actually quite liked it. It's Star Trek. It's Star Trek with like Rick and Morty humor, so it's But the thing about it is they had quite a few stories and moments that were like, wow, that was really some Star Trek. That was some good Star Trek storytelling. I like that. That was really good. But it doesn't negate the fact that the entire franchise appears to be run by people who can't tell the difference between reality and fantasy, who have to inject the literal version of modern day politics into the story instead of analyzing the story with modern day politics in mind. See, Star Trek always did that, but it did it within the universe, analyzing modern politics through the universe's lens. What they do today is they take the lens of today and they put that over Star Trek so that it has to look like bullshit from today rather than it being bullshit in their time and stuff like that. This is why you never see hardly any racism in actual Star Trek versus humans. Because none of the humans in Star Trek are fucking racist anymore. Almost all of them are only racist toward aliens. That's it. And why did they do that? Because it was to show that we could move beyond this. But racism is still going to exist, and you're still going to have to fight it, even against people who aren't racist against people of different colors of their own species. Like in one of the, I think it was one of the season 1 or 2 episodes, like a dude literally makes a derisive comment on Spock because he's fucking Vulcan, and Kirk immediately jumps down his fucking ass. And he doesn't say anything about, oh, you can't be like that and be in Starfleet. No. What he says is he told him, that is your superior officer. You show him proper respect because he is higher in the chain of command. And if you want to be a fucking bigot, you keep it in your fucking room. And it's like, yes, yes, 100%. I keep pressing the wrong button. 100%. Yes, that is what you want. That is the kind of shit you want. And what were they doing? Well, they were commenting on modern day politics, but they did it in the universe, and they did it in a way that obfuscated what we were doing today so you could stay inside the fantasy. Because humans at this time weren't racist toward one another because we'd gotten past all that bullshit. And unfortunately, in modern day Star Trek, it never feels like they do that. It always feels like they're analyzing everything through the lens of today and imprinting that upon the people of the Federation when the vast majority of them, especially in Starfleet, are supposed to be beyond that. That was the entire point, is you deal with these situations with other species, or you deal with like racism, you deal with it as speciesism instead. Somebody is racist toward a different alien species, not a different type of human, right? That kind of thing. And they can't seem to understand that, and so they fuck it all up. And this is why I don't interact with anything with Star Trek anymore. And I think a real problem with Alexander's really good, really thoughtful, retrospective dude. The Gallant meme that I got, this thing is from him. Definitely good dude. Highly recommend the follow. But I think one of the things he might be missing from this is there's a third faction here that's just like, I want my games to be escapism because I want my male power fantasy. All the other bullshit I don't give a fuck about, right? If you want to put politics in it, I'm cool with that. All the games I've ever played, most of the games you play that I play with RPGs and all, they all have politics. Look at Warhammer 40K. There's politics in it consistently, but it's Warhammer 40K politics, not United States politics from the current year, right? That's the difference. That's the fucking difference. So if you want to put a political message in it, frame it in the way that it is in the universe. But the problem is that the activists don't want you to do that. We saw this with Dragon Age 4, where you had people on Twitter and other places were castigating the people who did Dragon Age 3 when they included a trans individual in Dragon Age 3, but they did it in a way that was consistent with the lore of the game, and they called them fucking cowards for it. Cowards for putting a trans person front and fucking center in the game that you can investigate and interrogate and have an actual meaningful conversation, thoughtful conversation with, and talk to other people about that individual and see how they think about it. That's how you fucking do it. Did I think it was a little bit forced? Yeah, it was, because the trans thing is a bit especially in like a medieval setting, but they made it work. They did their due diligence. They found a way to fucking finger fucking in, and it worked for what it was, and it allowed thoughtful retrospection of what was going on. And they called them cowards for doing it the right way, because they don't want thoughtful retrospection. They don't want an analysis of these ideas. They want their ideas to be preached from the pulpit. And that is the other side of this. There is another team. To be fair, there's also another team that's the people who put all their politics in video games in the wrong way. So that's fair enough. All right, we're going to move on from this, and I think we're going to get a last epoch, but I need to take a break because I need to go use the restroom. So I'll be right back. Stand by. We shall be right back after these messages from our bursary. Stay tuned for more